Shalom, Jonathan Conricus here with The Bottom Line, and today we are discussing humanitarian aid in Gaza. Stay tuned if you want to understand reality on the ground, not the fakes, misinformation and hype in international media, but what really is happening and, most importantly, why it matters, following on this edition of The Bottom Line. The provision of humanitarian aid has been a hot topic ever since Israel launched its counteroffensive against Hamas after Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th. Aid has been a real issue because that is how Hamas stays in power, and that is what they use and manipulate in order to continue to dominate the Palestinian population. Hamas essentially relies on two things in order to stay in power and to prolong the war. One, keeping Israeli hostages in their dungeons and tunnels underground for more than 600 days, and two, controlling the supply of food and medical provision to Palestinian civilians in Gaza, either directly or through thugs or through their UN interlocutors and other front organizations like UNRWA. Now, what Israel has finally done, more than 600 days after the fighting started, is to present a viable option that rivals the Hamas delivery method. What we have on the ground is an American NGO called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which have opened distribution centers in southern Gaza, specifically in Rafah, but already planning and soon to be deploying distribution centers in center and northern Gaza. By the way, there are separate lines for men and women to avoid unnecessary friction between men and women as food is being distributed. There's strict security on the ground by Israeli soldiers protecting the perimeter and American contractors actually distributing the food. We're seeing the first stage of Hamas's operations to try to divert aid here. They're using fake news, misinformation, spreading lies, sowing dissent, and trying to intimidate Palestinians from approaching the centers. Judging by the numbers, Palestinians aren't impressed, and more than 6 million meals have already been provided directly to Gazan civilians without Hamas being able to interfere with it. But the first stage that Hamas is doing is misinformation. They will try to intimidate. They will try to obstruct. They have already been firing, directly firing with small arms, automatic fire at Palestinians seeking to get their hands on food. And I think these attempts will continue. I think Hamas will find loyal and useful allies in international media that will be happy to share Hamas's fake news about alleged mass casualty events, even calling it massacres in distribution centers in order to sow fear in the hearts of Gazans, but very importantly, to apply as much pressure as possible on Israel and to prevent Israel from persisting and continuing with the distribution of food. I personally think that these efforts will fail and that hungry Palestinians being oppressed by Hamas for so long will continue to show up bravely at the distribution centers in southern, central and northern Gaza, and they will get their hands on food because they're hungry and they need it. From there, I think Hamas will grow more desperate, and we will see direct attacks by Hamas on civilians in close proximity to the distribution centers, and we will see direct assaults by armed Hamas operatives, whether it's rockets, mortars, anti-tank rockets and missiles, and perhaps even sniper fire that will be directed at the distribution centers, all in an effort to stop the distribution from happening. I won't be surprised to see the so-called humanitarian ecosystem up in arms, trying to derail these real, honest and dignified efforts that Israel is doing together with the US in order to distribute food. Why? Because their business model is up for review. They are being exposed for what I believe that they are, which is nothing more than a front for Hamas, nothing more than organizations with blue UN emblems that are facilitating the oppression of Palestinians under Hamas's rule. And that is why they're afraid That is why there's a media offensive against Israel. That is why you will be hearing and seeing and getting spoon-fed with misinformation about what's going on the ground. There will be more reports of so-called massacres, and there will be more push notifications from the New York Times and other reputable Western outlets claiming that there's been killings at the sites. The efforts will be made to blame Israel for it, but at the end, I think physics will prevail. Palestinians will get food from the GHF, from the Americans and from Israel, and Hamas will be left without leverage of the population. If you really support Palestinians, their needs, if you care about alleviating suffering in Gaza, you should be supporting these efforts. These are real, tangible, dignified efforts by Israel to provide food to the people who need it without Hamas or UNRWA being able to interfere with it. So if you really support the Palestinians, you should be supporting this. We may be witnessing the beginning of the end of Hamas's tyranny over the Gaza Strip. These are crucial times for the Gaza Strip, for Israel and for the region. And as things come to the fore, Hamas will grow more desperate. I think we should anticipate more violence, more disinformation, more attempts by Hamas and their allies in the region and around the world to disrupt this. But at the end of it, I see one clear outcome that I hope will happen for the benefit of Israel and for Gazans. Distribution of food, return of the hostages, a complete surrender and disarmament of Hamas, and a complete unconditional victory for Israel. That will be the first step in a positive direction. That is how this war can and will end, and that is how we can start together, hopefully, with the international community, with regional partners, with the US leading it, but that is how we can start to chart a way forward for all the people in the region, for Israelis and for Arabs. I'm Jonathan Conricus, you're watching The Bottom Line, and thanks for watching this episode on humanitarian aid in Gaza. If you like it, find it useful, share it with friends, comment, share it with family, and anybody who believes different is welcome to comment below and tell me what I haven't gotten right and what you would want me to address in future episodes. Thanks for watching, and shalom from Israel.